We are in Ecclesiastes, the 12th chapter. It's been about 2 years since we've been in the text. At least it feels that long. I know it's been 2 weeks almost 3 weeks now since we've been in the text. Ecclesiastes 12:1 is a very familiar passage to most. Remember now, therefore, thy Creator in the days of thy youth. See, I told you it was familiar. The reason for that, however, is because there's coming a day when things are going to get hard, isn't it? When the evil days come not, nor the years draweth nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no strength in them. There's coming a day when old age is going to get a hold of us if we live long enough, right? You either die young or you get old. Those are the only alternatives, isn't it? So if you're old and you're feeling it, well, just thank your Lord that you didn't die young, okay? And you're still here. And so Solomon, beginning in Ecclesiastes 12 verse 2, picks up on this idea of being an old person. And he describes old age, and he describes it in some extremely interesting ways. But when you understand them, then the concepts that he sets forth just stick in your mind. Okay? And so we're going to be talking about those in the course of this lesson. Notice what he says beginning in Ecclesiastes 12:2. While the sun or the light or the moon or the stars be not darkened, nor the clouds return after the rain. Wow. That's talking about old age, folks. In old age, the sun, the light, the moon, the stars begin to what? To darken. Okay? What enables us to see? L-I-G-H-T. Light. That's what enables us to see. We turn out the light, especially all the light. We're in solid darkness. Guess what we can't do? We can't see, can we? Okay? So when he talks about this, the luminaries, these four luminaries, they represent the eyes of man. Okay? These are the eyes of man. And in time, the eyes are not what? They're just not able to see as clearly as they used to. Yesterday we were out and went to a restaurant and ordered the food, and then they always bring you a ticket. I don't know why, but they always bring you a ticket to pay. And I didn't have my glasses. And I looked down at that piece of paper and I could not see a thing. And I said, how much is that? Kathleen, she had on her contacts and they didn't help her a lick. She said, I don't know either. And so the woman, she had to tell us how much our bill was. And it just gets bad as you get older. It doesn't. Sometimes you just can't see as well. The eyes lose their strength. They develop cataracts. You can get glaucoma. My mother had perfect eyesight. Okay, as far as her eyes were concerned. She didn't need readers and stuff, but her eyesight was not bad. But deep down in the very middle part of her eye, she had a peripheral nerve that was damaged and that caused her to hurt all the time. If she opened her eyes and the light entered into her eyes, she was just in constant pain. So she kept both eyes shut for the last 4 years of her life as if she were almost a blind person. She'd open them up to walk a couple of steps, then close them again. Walk a couple of steps, close them again. If you ever saw her sitting at a table anywhere at the assisted living place, she always had her eyes closed. If you went into her house, into her little apartment, all the windows were shut. It was always dark because she could see in the dark as far as it not hurting her eyes, but she was just having trouble after that. But notice the next part that he says there. Also, the clouds what? Return after the rain. Normally, after a rain, what comes? Sunshine, does it not? Not so in old age. After the rain just comes more what? More clouds. One of the best illustrations of that right now in our congregation is poor Eva Bennett, is it not? It's been unbelievable. Every time she turns around, there's just something else that has impacted her. and causes her to go right back into the hospital or have to go back to more doctors, have to get more surgery. It just seems like it's just one thing after another, after another, after another. And that happens as you get old. You think you're going to see the sunshine, but not so. You go through a lot more difficult times. Notice that last point. Once one is finished with that difficulty, he finds another difficulty that appears. Blood pressure, high cholesterol, heart problems, kidneys, the liver, breathing difficulties, the eyes, hearing, nerves, digestive issues, cancer, and dementia. And the congregation at OceanSide said, Amen. Okay, because we got a bunch of that going on in this congregation, do we not? And so as we get older, our eyes are going to dim. As we get older, difficult times are just going to continue to happen over and over and over. And does that last one grow frustrating sometime? Yeah. You go get surgery, you think you're going to feel better, and you get over that, and then all of a sudden you just got another problem. And that's just not fun. All right. Any questions, comments? Perfectly executed verse. Remember, he's still describing the old age. Ecclesiastes 12:3. In the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble. Wow. And the strong men shall bow themselves. And the grinders cease because they are few. And those that look out of the windows be darkened. Man, isn't that a terrible description? Okay, it's a weird description, isn't it? In the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble. Who keeps house most of the time in a house? The woman does she not? And one of the things that you use to keep that house is your hands, isn't it? The keepers of the house. Notice what he says, when you get old, the keepers of the house shall what? Shall tremble. Shall tremble. Have you ever watched older folks? That was one of the first things I noticed on my grandmother. One of my grandmothers, my dad's mom used to come visit us a lot. And she got bad arthritis in her hands. And you'd watch her and she'd tremble. Okay, I got a note the other day from an older gentleman. And it's a pretty cool font. Okay, if we could duplicate that font, some people would use the font because you could just tell where he's shaking as he's writing the font. Okay, and the hands just shake, don't they? It's weird. But these are the hands we use to organize, to pick up, to do the housework. And Solomon says, in old age, they what? They tremble, do they not? In the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble. And I was looking up and trying to find out what are some of the things that cause that trembling. Okay. I realize that sometimes trembling is bad enough you go to the doctor and they have to treat it, right? But there's a lot of times individuals are not really treated for tremors in their hands. They just, something they eventually deal with, don't they? And I was wondering why that happens. And I noticed there on point 2, there are many causes of tremors, from stress to Parkinson's to B12 deficiency to medications. And most older individuals are on a lot of medications, are they not? And a lot of those side effects can cause those tremors as well. But does the shaking of the hands interfere a lot in life? Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know, you see older individuals go out and, they love to drink coffee, right? And they not only do they like to drink coffee, it's got to be at 160 degrees. Okay? It almost has, Gil, if it's not boiling, Gil thinks it's cold. Okay, he'll say, "Will you take this back there and nuke that for me for 17 seconds?" And so they like that hot coffee, but then they try to pick it up, and they just shake. And coffee's going everywhere, is it not? I think that's one of the reasons old folks used to drink coffee how? Out of the saucer, didn't they? They'd pour it in that saucer and then they'd drink that coffee. You didn't have, it's easier to handle. You picked it up with both hands, didn't you? And so you didn't have to tremble with one. And it also cooled it off just a little bit by putting it in that saucer. Notice the next point that he makes, though. He says, the strong men shall what? bow themselves. Did you know you had strong men on your body? Man, what are the strong men? What's the strongest part of your body? It's your legs, is it not? You're strong men. Notice he says, they shall what? They shall bow. Folks, the leg muscles are the largest muscles in the body. They uphold the entire weight of the body, do they not? And they allow us to be extremely agile and mobile. I know mobile isn't the way you're really supposed to say it, but they do allow us to be active. But in old age, guess what happens? They grow weak, do they not? For a lot of different reasons. Hips, muscles, knees, ankles, feet, all of that is attached to what? Attached to the legs. Just watch old folks walk, okay? Just watch them. And guess what? Their strong men are now what? Weak, okay? They're just weak and they're not strong as they used to be. A lot of older guys just kind of shuffle, don't they? I was watching a guy the other day and I thought, man, if I ever get to that age and I have to do that, dog, I'm going to have to radically alter my program of what I do, because it takes you, about an hour to get to a place, and that's just to the bathroom. But it's amazing. Now notice this next description. And the grinders shall what? Shall cease, because they are few. What are the grinders? Yes, the teeth. We don't call them that, do we? What you need to do is you need to talk to your children differently. Go brush your grinders. Okay? Boy, your grinders sure do look yellow. But notice what Solomon says. Solomon says that the grinders cease because they are what? They're few. Now, we've come a long way, have we not, as far as dental technology is concerned, right? In Solomon's day, guess what you didn't have? Did you hear that? I heard somebody say teeth. Oh, and how true that is. They didn't have teeth. And that's what he's talking about. They didn't have the technology we do. No dentures, right? They weren't able to go in and just repair cavities. They didn't do caps and crowns and veneers and all this fancy stuff that we do. Once you lost a tooth, guess what? You just lost a tooth. And over the course of time, guess what? You lost a bunch of them. And so the grinders cease because they're what? Few. I used to remember when my grandparents would pull out their dentures, okay? And there was a reel on just the other day. There was this little child, maybe couldn't have been more than 16, 18 months old, sitting in a high chair. And the grandma was sitting just right beside the baby. And the baby was going, and just mocking the grandma. And that grandma got so mad, she said, "You better stop that." And just so funny. But, your lips just sink in over your gums, don't they? Because you don't have any teeth there. And Solomon didn't have all the technology that we do. So when they lost their teeth, they were gone. Now note the last thing. And those that look out the window be what? Be darkened. What's he talking about again? The eyes. The eyes. Folks, there's no longer the ability to look out the window and enjoy the things that are out there. Notice the next part. And the doors shall be shut in the street when the sound of the grinding is low. And he shall arise at the voice of the bird, and all the daughters of music shall be brought low. 4 more descriptions of old age. Notice what he says. And the doors shall be shut in the street. Man, what are the doors? Yes, these are the lips of man. The doors are the lips of the mouth. Let me ask you something. Has anybody noticed as you get older, your mouth is not fully under your control? Now see, I just heard people laugh. I never heard anybody say yes. Okay? But every laugh was an amen. Okay? Have you ever watched an old person eat? Yeah, they need a shield. Don't they? Because if you're not careful, they'll spit all over you, won't they? Okay? You don't swallow as well. You don't chew as well. You bite your gums. You bite your tongue. Why? You're getting old, folks. The muscles and things that are in your head and in your mouth just aren't functioning the way they used to. Do older people usually eat just a little bit slower than young people do? Oh, yes. You know, a young person can come in, slam it down, and be gone. And old folk, he ain't even got his biscuit open hardly. Okay? Number one, cause of the tremors, and number two, because he can't chew fast. But it's true. You ever seen an old person slobber? Oh yeah, you see them do that. I mean, I'm not trying to be mean. It's just true, isn't it? You walk up to an old person and they'll just have some slobber on their mouth and things. It's all a part of old age. Is it true that oftentimes their lips and their teeth are not as appealing as they used to be? Yeah. You know, either they don't have teeth, the teeth are beginning to rot, they've turned colors, they don't like to show their teeth to anybody. And that's what Solomon's talking about. And the door shall be what? Shut in the street. When I get out and I get among people, because of the way my mouth functions, because of the way my mouth looks, guess what I don't do? I don't open it the way I used to. Is that true? Yeah. You can even see people taking pictures sometime, right? And you don't see what? You don't see teeth. And you know, they just smile with their lips closed. And they don't look very natural, but they're trying to hide what? Trying to hide the things that are behind the doors. When the sound of the grinding is what? Is low. Wow. Grinding happens when one chooses food. As the teeth are fewer and fewer, the sound of grinding is what? Is lower, isn't it? You don't hear good chewing of the food. And again, we have to appreciate that they didn't have the sophisticated dental practices that we do today. Notice this next one. He shall arise at the voice of what? At the voice of the bird. Man, the bird. What is the bird? What's the bird that usually we think of as arousing people from sleep? The crowing of the rooster, is it not? The crowing of the rooster. He's not able to sleep like he used to. Right? Now some individuals stay up late, don't they? And they sleep late. Or some go to bed early, and they get up early, don't they? I was talking to a man when I was at the Bethel Church of Christ up in Athens, and he says, I get up every morning at 3:30. Isn't that unbelievable? So then I ask him what? That's what I ask him. What time do you go to bed? 11 o'clock. He sleeps 4.5 hours a night. I said, do you sleep in the afternoon? Nope, not at all. Now that's a different kind of an older person, is it not? Okay. Most of the time if you stay up late, you sleep late. If you get up early, you go to bed fairly early. And but there are many. I bet you if we took a poll of individuals 65 or 70 and older, almost every one of them get up at least before 7. You know what? And many of them still get up around 6 o'clock. You know what? There's quite a few elderly people that still get up early in the morning. It's just unbelievable. And they just arise at the voice of the bird. Notice this last one. And the daughters of music shall be brought what? Shall be brought low. Music has been something that is special and enjoyable in all societies. As one ages, however, his ears are not able to hear the sounds of those that are performing. Some older individuals will cry out, sing louder, turn it up. Right? You know what they tell me? Make the font bigger on your PowerPoints. I'm already at 500 font. Goodness gracious. You know, what do you want? 1 letter per slide? Man, unreal. But again, aren't we fortunate to have what they didn't have back then? You know, Solomon couldn't go purchase a hearing aid. He had money to purchase it. But they didn't have hearing aids back then, did they? One of the funniest movies, anybody ever seen The Patriot? Seen that movie? And this young guy wants to go marry this girl. Well, in order to marry the girl, he had to go ask what? Permission from the dad. Well, the dad acts like, he really doesn't, but he acts like he's got bad hearing. Well, even back then, they didn't have what? They didn't have hearing aids. What did they have? Yeah, they had these little horn things. Hey! You know, it's so funny when he asks him. And finally the daughter goes over and she says, "Stop that, Dad." It's so funny. Beverly, what were you going to say? I know, but y'all go to bed at different times. What time you get up? What time you get up, though? What time you go to bed? That doesn't tell me what time. What time you go to bed? 2 o'clock? 11. Well, that's not too bad. 3. What time do you go to bed, Bill? What time do you go to bed? No later than 10. So you're sleeping about the same amount of time, just going to bed at different times, aren't you? And it all depends. But sleep is not what it used to be as you get older, is it? You know, you just don't sleep the way you used to. Here's an example of a man by the name of Barzillai, found in 2 Samuel 19. Remember, David had to flee his palace, did he not? And he fled because of Absalom and his rebellion. Well, eventually he gets to come back home. And this is a man who had helped him, who had assisted him, who had befriended him during this period of time. And now that David is going home, he wants this man to go back with him. Okay? And the king said unto Barzillai, "Come thou over with me, and I will feed thee with me in Jerusalem." And Barzillai said unto the king, "How long have I to live, that I should go up with the king to Jerusalem? I am this day," how old? 80 years old, 80 years old. Was that an old man back then? Let me tell you something, folks. If you hit 80 back then, you were extremely old. Okay? Extremely old. Now listen to this. "And can I discern between good and evil?" What's he saying? My mind is not what it used to be, is it? I'm not able to make those decisions like I used to make. "Can thy servant taste what I eat or what I drink?" I was talking about Gil's Coffee the other day. I used to work at a restaurant, and once a year at this restaurant, they had the retirees of Sears come, and they had a big meal for them. Same menu for everybody, so it was easy to serve, and you got a good tip, but they were what? Retirees. Okay? Now, back then, some of them folks worked till they were 70 or more. Okay? And these little ladies would come in, and guess what you couldn't do? You could not heat their coffee hot enough to save them. And we didn't have Yeti cups. Okay? Didn't have Yeti cups. I mean, you could bring it out bubbling. And they could not taste that coffee was hot. Isn't that something? They just scalded their nerves in their mouth over the years and had no ability to feel the hotness of that coffee. And that's what he says, you know, my taste buds and all are just not what they used to be. I can't taste what I eat or what I drink. "Can I hear any more the voice of singing men and singing women?" What's he saying? Yeah, my hearing's gone. That's exactly what we just talked about, remember? The voice of the daughters of music shall be brought low. And then he says this, "Wherefore then should thy servant be yet a burden unto the Lord, my King?" You know what? I hear old people say that all the time. All I am is a burden to others. Isn't that true? Or maybe they'll say something like this, "I want to live a long time, but I don't want to be a burden." Right? And yet, guys, if we live long enough, we might as well expect that what? We're going to be a burden to somebody. Whether you're in a treatment facility, whether you're at home, in some shape, form, or fashion, you are going to be a burden to others. Now, what's wonderful about that is this. There was a time when older folks were our burden. Isn't that true? We've had to help our mom. We've had to help our dad. We've had to help our aunt, our uncle, our grandparents when they were older. Well, guess what? Turnabouts. Fair play, is it not? My prayer is that you've raised your children in such a way that they'll take care of you. You know it? Because today in our society there's a lot of kids who want nothing to do with mom and dad when they get older. You know that? Is that something that's unusual? Turn over to Matthew for just a minute. The 15th chapter. This is something Jesus addresses in Matthew 15. He addresses it in a unique way, but it's the same principle. Matthew 15, beginning verse 1. Then came to Jesus scribes and Pharisees, which were of Jerusalem, saying, Why do thy disciples transgress the tradition of the elders? For they wash not their hands when they eat bread. Now, did the law of Moses say wash your hands before you eat bread? The law of Moses did not. Notice what they say. Why do your disciples transgress the what? The tradition of the elders. This was something that the elders had added to the law. Okay? They'd added to the law. So here the disciples, now they elevated that tradition to almost the same height as what? As the law of Moses. And so when the disciples didn't wash their hands and ate bread, an offense. Now notice what Jesus says. But he answered and said unto them, Why do ye also transgress the commandment of God by your tradition? Which was more important, the tradition or the command of God? The command of God. Now what's interesting to me is this. Jesus doesn't just make an accusation. This is an accusation, right? But He proves it to these individuals. For God commanded, saying, Honor thy father and thy mother. And he that curseth father and mother, let him die the death. That's the what? That's the command of Moses, is it not? Honor thy father and thy mother. And if you don't, you what? You die. Now there's the command. But ye say, here's the what? Here's the tradition. But ye say, Whosoever shall say to his father or his mother, It is a gift, by whatsoever thou mightest be profited by me, and honor not his father or his mother, he shall be free. What's he talking about? What does it take to support your parents in old age? M-O-N-E-Y. Doesn't it? Money. And it takes a boatload of money sometimes, doesn't it? Gas money, medicine money, medical money, all kinds of money, right? Treatment, therapy, blankets, heating pads, water bottles. I'm just messing with you now. But there's all kinds of expenses, right? Well, if you're not careful, your old parents can drain your pocketbook, can't they? Well, you don't want your pocketbook drained. So the Jews came up with a way to get around the command of God. Now see, honoring your father and mother isn't just obedience at home when you're a 2 and 3 and 4-year-old and teenager. Honoring your father and mother means you take care of those people when they're old. That's part of the command. But what they would do is they would take their money, they would dedicate it to the temple. Okay? They would let the temple, listen to me, borrow it. I want to dedicate this money to the temple for the next 10 years. And so they would. Well, guess what they would then do to their parents? Sorry, Mom. Sorry, Dad. I dedicated my money to the temple and I don't have anything to take care of you with. What had you just done? You just transgressed the command of God by your what? By your tradition. You see, it was lawful to do that as far as the tradition was concerned, but in so doing, they were violating what? They were violating the law of Moses. And what did Jesus say about it? Look at the very next verse. In that verse 6. Thus have you made the commandment of God of none effect by your what? By your tradition. Man. God said, take care of what? Take care of your parents. That's part of honoring them. I find it interesting that when Jesus hung upon the cross of Calvary, there was a saying that He spoke. And it was what? Woman, behold thy son. Son, behold thy mother. What was He doing? He was entrusting the care of His mother into the care of John, wasn't He? And He was asking him to take care of her because He knew what? That's my responsibility. I've got to take care of my mom. I've got to make sure she's taken care of. Here He is almost on the verge of death. And He's concerned about who? He's concerned about His mother. And He makes certain that she's taken care of. And the Bible says that John took her from that very day into his care, did he not? And took care of Mary for the rest of her life. So young people, we need to raise young people just a little bit differently. You know what? And we need to stress to our young people that you've got to take care of mom and dad. Okay? And it's not an easy thing to do. Anything else on that one? Larry?
That's the blessing of a helpmeet, a wife. Because generally you end up, maybe you're both the same age, but you're not in the same condition.
That's true.
And so the eyes of one is weak, the eyes of the other is strong. So that's why we talk about helpmeet.
And it is true, don't we? We compensate for one another, don't we? And help one another. And you hope both, when one is down, the other is up. And it's bad when they're both down. And that happens a lot too, isn't it?
You go to the kids.
Yep. That's when you call Glenn. Glenn? Notice in the very next verse, he's still describing old age, folks. Also, when they shall be afraid of that which is high, and fears shall be in the way. This next one's interesting. And the almond tree shall flourish, and the grasshopper shall be a burden, and desire shall fail. Because man goeth to his long home, and the mourners go about the streets. Man, there's a lot in that verse, is there not? Notice the first one. And when they shall be afraid of that which is high. You know what most old folks don't do anymore? They don't get on their roofs and clean the leaves off the roof. Okay? Now, there's some stupid people. I said that because Candy was pointing to Hal. He still does it. But I'll guarantee you get to a certain age and guess what? You just don't go up high like you used to, right? There comes a time when you hire it done now, don't you? Okay? Keep working on him. Okay? Poor thing. And notice this next one. And fears shall what? Fears shall be in the way. Unreal. The elderly become more aware of evil things that can be found in the way. Don't they? Some of the things could be real. Thieves and robbers. I don't go out at night. There's thieves and robbers out there. There's always been thieves and robbers out there. But now for some reason, they're right there. They're right behind their front bush, aren't they? Others can be perceived dangers. Potholes, dogs, children in the streets. Can old folks come up with some doozies? Oh, I bet you could tell some stories, can't you? She's taking care of her mom right now, and it's funny. But elderly people, for some reason, they just can imagine all kinds of horrible, bad things that can happen, and things that most of the time you would never imagine. Okay? But all of a sudden, that's what they're thinking of. Now notice this next one. And the almond tree shall what? Shall flourish. What in the world is he talking about? This involves the presence of gray hair. Now, we've done a good job in our society to dial that back too, hadn't we? It's called color, isn't it? For some reason, it's funny, the Bible honors what they call the hoary head. Okay? The Bible puts a premium on individuals with gray hair. And we've done everything in our society not to have gray hair, don't we? And we look upon it as something that's not good. Clark says this, the almond tree, while having white flowers, is a fit emblem of a hoary head. Or as Hasselquist says, who observed the tree in full flower in Judea, like an old man with his white locks. And I put a picture there of an almond tree as it is budding, and it does have that white color to it, doesn't it? And one of the first men that I ever remember having white hair that I saw that was older was Brother Foy Wallace Jr. He had a head full of hair. Didn't lose any of it, but he is just as white as it could possibly be. And it was just, man, whoever did his styling, and they did a great job on his hair. Notice this next one. And the grasshopper shall be a what? Shall be a burden. Folks, the grasshopper is small, isn't it? Usually doesn't present a problem to man. And all of a sudden, I'm worried about what? Grasshoppers. Oh, the grasshopper. That's not really what he's talking about. In old age, small things that used to be easy, they're hard, aren't they? And I put down a few. Cooking a meal, that becomes a problem, doesn't it? Dusting a room. I will dust a room a day, and that turns into be a room a week or a room a month. Right? Because when you think about it, you go, dusting. I got to dust. I got to get the rag out and indust and wipe. What a chore. And it used to be what? Just something you did. You could feed kids 10 times a day, couldn't you? Getting up and getting ready in the morning. Can that be a chore? I hear that all the time. I have to get up at 5 o'clock to get her at 9. 5 o'clock? What are you doing for 4 hours? It takes me an hour to get one leg in my breeches. Going to the store. Going to a movie, going out to eat. My mom, when she got older, you'd look at her and say, Mom, let's go out to eat. I got food in the freezer. Mom, let's go get something. I got food here at the house. I'm not going out to eat. Things that used to be fun, used to be enjoyable, used to be simple, guess what? In old age, they're just not. Notice, desire shall fail. Desire can simply be defined as what? Want to. There is less want to as one ages. Less want to when it comes to travel, less want to when it comes to cooking for family, less want to when it comes to parties. Okay? You're finally glad when the kids said, we'll have Christmas over at our house. Hallelujah. Right? Hallelujah. I don't have to do that anymore. Man, less want to. Notice the last 2 points there very quickly. Because men goeth to his what? To his long home. Folks, I want you to listen to something. It has always been in the plan of God for men to die. Okay? We fight death. We hate death. We don't want to deal with death. It's always been in God's plan for man to die. It's appointed that a man wants to die. And after this what? The judgment. That, once Adam and Eve sinned in the garden, separated themselves from the tree of life, death became a reality of life. And notice how Solomon refers to it. Man goeth to his long what? His long home. His long home. We're going to die. And we'll finally reach our dwelling place. And notice how he ends it. And mourners go about in the streets. When individuals leave this earth, there are some who will dearly miss them. And the usual reaction is what? Sorrow and grief. Do many individuals who are walking the streets right now, even though they seem to be normal, still carry the grief of someone who's died? Yeah. They say the normal death, the grieving process lasts about 2 years. Okay? If it's a very tragic, traumatic death, anywhere from 5 to 7 years to recover from that death. And so the mourners go about where? In the streets after the death of an individual.